Hey, this is Manny with Not Waiting to Live, and in this video we're going to look at how car dealers rip people off. More specifically, we're going to look at a very popular video about how car dealers rip people off. This video was produced by Marko at WhiteBoard Finance. He does a great job, and one of the reasons I think this video got so popular, it's got 7 million views, is it says a lot of what people want to hear. But there are things in that video that I disagree with, that I'd like to speak on from my perspective as a former Mercedes Benz car salesman. So in this video, you'll hear everything that Marko had to say, and then you'll hear my 2 cents on top of that for what it's worth.
So if you've ever bought a car, you may have seen this before. This is what we call the Foursquare, okay?
Here's an example of a worksheet that a dealer might use if they follow the Foursquare method. This would be a piece of paper that the salesperson would hand to you when they're ready to speak on specific terms. The dealership that I worked for didn't use this method, so here's an example of a quote that looks more like what I used.
The vehicle, these will be your monthly payments. So let's say, for example, you're trading in a 2006 Chevy Impala. You want to get a new one, right? So you have a 2006 Impala with 8 million miles on it. What the actual car manager or the salesperson will do is, in front of you, they'll silently devalue your trade. That's what we call devaluing your trade. So while you're talking and
That's certainly a way to decrease the value of a trade-in, but that's not something that you'll always experience. The dealership that I worked for never had that interaction. When I was working with a client, I might take their keys for the trade-in, but I'd hand that off to a manager or somebody that was dedicated in that role, and there was never a public or visible display of pointing out defects in the client's trade.
let's just say you're buying a new Impala, and we'll call this 24.9. These are all just hypothetical numbers. Down payment, this is the money that they want you to put down. And then monthly payment, they'll sketch out like 3 different scenarios, right? You'll have, let's say, $500 at 60 months, $475 at 72 months, and then they'll have like $575, or excuse me, let's just call it $450 at 84 months, okay? So when they come back to you with this Foursquare, it's essentially a piece of paper with these 4 squares. These are all meant to be negotiation pieces, okay? The dealership is really making their money on the monthly payment and also how much you put down. So financing is by far the most profitable center within the whole dealership, okay?
I disagree with that statement. The most profitable center on average at a dealership is going to be the service garage. And even if you're looking at used and new vehicle sales, the dealer is still making about as much on the profit from the sale price of the car as they are on the financing and all those extras.
So when you go to the guys in the back to do paperwork and they're selling you rim insurance and warranties and all that stuff, that's all junk for the most part. Okay.
So all those little extra add-ons that they try to sell you in the finance department or even earlier in the process from the salesperson, I don't agree that they're all junk. I mean, if you park in an urban city, I think that most people would probably break even or come out ahead if they got tire and wheel protection just from parallel parking alone and scuffing rims or denting their wheels on potholes. The real life customers came in after the fact, after rejecting those packages, and wanted to know what we could do about their blown out tire or bent rim, and the answer is nothing. And if you care about the higher level performance cars, sports cars, if you ever notice the paint defects from a factory or even just normal use, it's pretty eye-opening if you care about those type of details. So to pay for paint correction, that's a legitimate service that's labor intensive to protect that paint. I mean, those are all valuable services that I think warrant some consideration, that it's not just a ripoff.
Okay, that's the highest margin in the dealership. The second highest is the service center. So when you go to get your car serviced, yeah, you might as well be getting your rear end serviced because you're taking it right there. And then lastly, new cars are the least profitable area of the dealership, okay? Think about it logically. If you're a Chevy dealership and you get brand new Chevys, What do you think a brand new Chevy is going to cost? It's going to cost the same in Ohio as it does in Florida, as it does in California, as it does in Alaska. It's a brand new car with an MSRP.
So this is a bit of a common myth and misunderstanding. The cost to a dealer for a new car, even though it could be purchased identically across the country, the incentives from the manufacturer and even for that dealership is going to vary regionally by the time of year and their relative performance goals and their financial situation. So the reason why it's useful to shop quotes to multiple dealers in a region or around the country is because these dealers don't all pay the same. There isn't some magical dealer invoice minus holdback method to figure out what everybody paid. There's more that goes into that than just assuming that they all paid about the same.
Okay? These dealerships are getting them for relatively the same price. They can only mark up new cars so much. The new car sale is the least profitable center for the dealership. Remember that. The used car is actually way more profitable than the new car, and you'll see why. That's exactly from this Foursquare. So what will happen is you guys are negotiating on a car, you pick out a car you like, you test drive it, you like it, you smell it, you touch it, oh, you're in love, right? Especially when you're coming out of this piece of junk here. So they sit you down at the table, would you like a cup of coffee? Oh, here's my manager, you know, oh, this is Mike, yeah, nice to meet you, thanks for stopping in today, blah, 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 right? It's all an act, it's Hollywood. So what they do is they come back with this Foursquare, this piece of paper that has these numbers on it, and the numbers are meant to offend you.
Speaking only from my experience, we did not try to offend with our initial offer. So there are a number of variables into why a dealer is making that initial price. And there were times where a client would walk away from the table, they might come back later and we still wouldn't move from that price. Maybe we sell for that price or more at a later date. There are factors beyond your control, and it's not always the dealer playing a game or trying to mislead you, which it can be the case, but not always the case.
Is they want you to beat them up so you feel like you got a deal, right? It's all perception, and perception is reality.
The only reality that you need to understand as a car buyer going to a dealership, no car dealer is going to sell you a car for a price they are not comfortable selling it to you for. So there are no master negotiators. No one's gonna go in there, leave the car dealer's head spinning, thinking, oh my God, the guy just came in here and he totally ripped us off. That's not gonna happen. The best you can do as a car buyer is uncover what that particular dealer is willing to sell for on that particular day for their particular financial situation. So a lot of times there's more luck involved than people are willing to admit.
So the salesperson is going to say, okay, I'm going to go through the trade-in, it's $4,000, this is the price of the Impala, and they're going through this really quick, right? Down payment is this, and your monthly payments are this. And they're going to say, okay, if these numbers work for you, just initial here on this X, I will take this car home today. There you go.
And then the salesperson waits. They wait as long as it takes for the buyer to speak.
Normally when we sign things, we're committing our signature. That's like committing our word, our trust, right? So when we do that, when we initial on this piece of paper and go back to the manager, or the salesperson takes the paper back to the manager and says, yep, here you go. You just bought a new car, congratulations. Even if the terms aren't exactly what you wanted, you feel bad about initialing and going back on your word. So I know that's long-winded, but it's very important, okay? So typically what the salesperson is going to say is, okay, where do we have to work with you on for you to take home this car? Okay, and most people that have half a brain will say every square, okay? But some of these people, they don't understand numbers, so they're going to go straight to their down payment. They're going to think about the cash that they have, or in this case, don't have. So a lot of people that are buying these kinds of cars, they're not very mathematically savvy, and they're also broke, to be honest with you. So they're going to say, you know what, I need to lower my down payment. I don't really have $4,000 with me right now. You know, is there any way we can go a little bit lower? And the salesperson will put on an act and say, oh, you know, if you lower the down payment, these monthly payments are going to go up. It's just basic math. It's kind of like a scale, blah, blah, blah.
If you lower the down payment, the total payment is going to increase. That is just an attempt to set and coordinate expectations.
You know, we'll see what we can do here. We'll try and move this to $3,000, okay? You know, these payments may go up a little, and that's when they start talking about payments. They want to keep the conversation down here. Payments are most important to them. Remember that.
So yes, car sales has become a payment-driven industry. Car buyers are more willing than ever to stretch those payments out over more time in order to take a lower monthly payment, but pay more for the car in general. However, one of the first things a good car salesperson is going to tell you is that it's not about price. And I myself, I didn't believe that at first. Of course it's about price, but it's not about price. Sales is an outcome-based profession. So a good salesperson at this point, by the time they hand you the sheet, they're looking at separating you through questions from where you are now to where you want to be. So when it comes to that sheet, you got 3 options, 48, 60, 72 months. As far as the salesman's concerned, they're just giving you 3 different ways to say yes. So that's not really relevant to the outcome of a properly prepped car buyer.
Excuse me. So now you're going to start talking payments. The person's going to say, well, you know what? I think those payments were high to begin with. You know, I told you I really need to be right around, you know, $350 a month, $300 a month. People have needed to be $300 a month for the last 20 years, okay? That's where everyone wants to be. You know, probably a little bit less than that even. So the salesperson is going to say, well, you know, I moved a little bit on the down payment for you. It's going to be really hard to get you into, you know, $350, but I'll see what I can do. My manager's in a really good mood today. You know, he's a really good guy. So,
you know, one quick story I can give you to demonstrate that it's not always about price, even with budget buyers. On 2 separate occasions, I had 2 real sticklers focusing on the payment, and I had to go back to the manager, and we were talking about it, and my manager said, go back out there, look them in the eye, and ask them, am I not worth $500? And wait till they respond. And both times when I did that, the customer, they were very confused initially, but in the silence, at the end of it, they decided to accept the deal. They went with the price that was higher than they were asking for.
what they'll do is they'll cross out this on 84 months to get you into the longest term possible, and they'll say, okay, 375. All right, what I'll do is I'm going to take this back to my manager. If I can get you at $3,000 down payment and at 375, will you initial here and take the car home today? And what are you going to do? You'll say, well, we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to commit to anything. Or unless you're a pushover and they're clubbing you like a baby seal, okay, you're going to sign that because you're an idiot.
The worst thing that can happen as a car buyer is not that you pay too much. The worst thing that can happen is you buy the wrong car.
To get to that point, this is all a game. They know how much they have or how much they can sell your trade-in for, and they'll wiggle on this, but they won't wiggle on the price. And if they do wiggle on the price, they won't budge on the trade, right? The trade comes in exponentially lower than what it's really worth. It's all about those margins, you guys. So when the salesperson comes back and says, you know what, Jim? You know, he'll come back with a big smile on his face. Hey, you know what, Marko? I was able to get you down to 3,000 and we can get you into those payments. I wasn't able to do 375, but I can do 389. Is that okay for you? And you're going to say, well, it's still a little bit high, but you know what? It's close enough. You know, thanks a lot. And you're gonna sign right here or initial. What he just did was he bumped this payment up roughly $14, $15. Over the course of this term, that just made the dealership over $1,500 easily in interest, okay? They all have relationships with local banks. How do you think auto financing works, you guys?
As I pointed out before, they do make about the same selling cars on sale gross profit as the financing and the extras, but the way that dealers can make extra incentive from financing is by floating the rate. So they might have a relationship with an existing financial institution, and they might say, hey, we'll give this buyer a loan at 5%, but if you get them to sign up at 6%, we'll give you an extra $500. If you get them to sign up at 7%, we'll give you $1,500 extra bucks. So there is a game to be played there, and the way that you can protect yourself is to have an alternative quote from another financial institution, a credit union, someone else, just to check the rate. Doesn't mean that that rate's going to be lower, that the one you find on your own is going to be lower. Sometimes it's not.
GM, Lexus credit, Toyota credit, Ally, that's where they make their money. It's in the financing. They don't make money selling cars, okay? That's the smallest portion of profit for these dealerships and also for the manufacturers. So next time, understanding this Foursquare, next time you go to buy a car, go in with your own financing already in place. Talk to a local credit union, show them the car that you want to buy or that you're interested in, get pre-approved or even get a certified check or a loan for that amount, right? That way your interest is fixed and it's lower than what it would be at the dealership. The dealership intentionally leaves margin in these numbers, that way that their guys in the back can sell you warranties for much less than what they actually cost. Hey, it's only bumping up your payment $2 a month. Why wouldn't you do this? Right?
In theory and in practice sometimes, there might be some more room in the payment to accommodate a warranty or additional financing deals, but that's all dependent on how much profit is coming out of that end as well. It's all a balancing game. You know, how much are you willing to pay for $1? Will you pay 99 cents? The math works out as it will, but I don't really buy into the line of thinking that car salespeople who are paid on the front end gross profit are going to willingly sacrifice that in order to help the finance person who is a separate person on a separate paycheck, who, by the way, because there's fewer of them, probably make significantly more than most of the car people at the dealership.
Right? It's all a game, you guys. So now, knowing what you know, get your financing in place and don't tell them you have a trade, okay? When you go to a dealership, do not tell them you have a trade. Negotiate the car that you really like, act as if you don't have a trade.
In theory, for a lot of used car purchases, it probably does make sense to keep the trade-in separate from the purchase of the vehicle. However, this does add real time. And then if you're buying a new car, there's significantly more complicated implications because in a lot of states, the trade-in value of the vehicle is deductible from the sales tax that you pay. So if you pull a stunt like that when you're buying a new car, I mean, you just threw a wrench into the whole deal. You could potentially add hours to your deal and not come out ahead whatsoever. I mean, the best way to really approach this, in my opinion, is just to shop your trade-in in advance to many dealers around the region via email.
And then bring this in at the last second. They'll give you a ridiculously low number, but at the end of the day, it's worth doing because you're negotiating on price. You're not negotiating on the price of your trade-in. Does that make sense? So I hope this video was valuable to you. I know
you can check out Marko's other videos on his channel, WhiteBoard Finance. I've never met the guy, even though I think he's from the Cleveland area like me. But he seems like a great guy. He has a huge following, ton of personal finance videos, and even some other really popular car videos on his channel. And to wrap this video up, tell me about, in the comment section, what's the biggest car dealer scam, biggest car dealer ripoff that you're aware of? Share it in the comment section below. If nothing else, you're going to inform people just like you who are reading the comment section wanting to learn something.